Retired Cowboy bought Apache girls to free them, but ended up marrying them instead. Wild West story in the late 1800s, the Wild West was a land of extremes. Rolling deserts stretched for miles, dotted with jagged mountains and scattered settlements. Life was often harsh, unpredictable, and full of challenges that tested every man, woman, and child who lived there. In this rugged world, there was a retired cowboy named Samuel Hayes. Samuel had spent most of his life on the open range, tending to cattle, riding horses across dangerous trails, and surviving the many perils of the frontier. He was known among other cowboys as a man of integrity, courage, and quiet determination. Even though Samuel had retired from the daily hardships of cowboy life, he carried the lessons of the West with him, lessons of resilience, fairness, and respect for others. Samuel had chosen a life of simplicity in his retirement. His small cabin stood near the edge of a dry creek, where the air was clear, and the sunsets painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. He had a few horses, a small herd of cattle, and a garden where he grew vegetables for his meals. Though the work was lighter than it had been on the open range, it still required effort. Samuel liked it that way. He enjoyed the quiet rhythm of life and the peace that came with being away from the dangers and chaos of the wild plains. But despite his calm life, Samuel's heart could not ignore the suffering he saw in the world. He had lived long enough to witness both the best and worst in people, and one day he heard news that stirred something deep inside him, a story that would change the course of his life. At a remote trading post not far from his cabin, Samuel overheard men speaking in low, urgent tones. They spoke of young Apache girls who had been captured by slavers. The girls were being sold far from their families, forced into a life of hardship and struggle. The words cut through Samuel like a cold wind. He had always respected the Apache people. He admired their strength, their courage, and their deep connection to the land. The thought of these girls being taken from their homes, separated from their families, and treated as property made him furious. Without hesitation, Samuel knew he had to act. He could not allow these girls to suffer, not when he had the means and the skills to help them. He gathered his savings, thinking carefully about the risks. He knew that negotiating with slavers was dangerous. These men were often cruel and had little regard for human life. But Samuel had always faced danger with a steady hand. He trusted his experience, his knowledge of people, and his courage. If anyone could save the girls, he believed it could be him. Samuel set out toward the location where the girls were being held. He traveled on horseback through dusty trails, winding rivers, and steep canyons. Along the way, he faced many obstacles. Storms would suddenly appear on the horizon, turning dry trails into muddy challenges. Wild animals lurked in the shadows, and bandits occasionally roamed the paths looking for easy prey. Samuel faced all these dangers calmly, relying on his skill, knowledge, and intuition. He remembered lessons from his years as a cowboy. Always stay alert, trust your instincts, and never underestimate the power of patience. When he finally reached the camp where the girls were held, Samuel observed from a distance. The slavers were rough men, armed and wary, guarding their captives carefully. Samuel studied their patterns and waited for the right moment to approach. Using the reputation he had built over years as a fair but tough cowboy, he approached with confidence. The slavers were surprised to see a man so calm and self-assured. Samuel spoke firmly, explaining that he wanted to buy the girls freedom. At first, the slavers laughed, thinking this was a naive attempt that would fail. But Samuel was patient. He negotiated carefully, using both money and his reputation as leverage. He understood that rushing or showing fear would only make things worse. Finally, after tense hours of negotiation, the slavers agreed. Samuel paid the amount they demanded, and the girls were legally his responsibility. But this was not a victory to boast about. The girls had endured fear, uncertainty, and hardship. Samuel knew that freeing them was just the beginning of the journey. The real challenge lay ahead, guiding them safely back to their families and helping them regain a sense of safety and trust in a world that had treated them cruelly. The first moments after gaining their freedom were quiet and cautious. The girls were wary, unsure of this stranger who had become their protector. Samuel understood their hesitation. He spoke gently, explaining that he would not harm them and that his only goal was to ensure their safe return home. Slowly, they began to relax, sensing the honesty and sincerity in his voice. Samuel learned their names and listened to their stories, understanding the trauma they had endured and the strength they carried within. Even in their fear, there was courage. Even in their uncertainty, there was hope. As they set off on the journey home, Samuel faced new challenges. The trail was long and often treacherous. He had to navigate through deserts where water was scarce and forests where wild animals prowled. He taught the girls how to stay safe, how to move quietly, and how to look after themselves in the wilderness. They, in turn, shared their knowledge of the land, how to find edible plants, how to read signs of weather, and how to move silently when danger was near. The journey became a partnership, each learning from the other, each respecting the strengths the others brought to the group. Through days and nights on the trail, Samuel began to notice something unexpected. These girls were not just victims of circumstance. They were resilient, intelligent, and brave. One girl named Ayana showed particular courage and resourcefulness. She observed the world around her with keen eyes, noticing details that Samuel sometimes overlooked. She moved with quiet confidence and spoke with thoughtful insight. Samuel found himself admiring her strength and wisdom. He realized that this journey was changing him as much as it was changing them. As the group traveled, they encountered both natural beauty and peril. They crossed sparkling rivers that reflected the endless sky, hiked through forests where the sunlight filtered softly through the leaves, and slept under starlit skies that seemed to stretch into eternity. Yet, danger was never far away. Storms could appear without warning, rattlesnakes lay hidden in the brush, and the threat of bandits always lingered. Samuel faced each challenge with calm determination, teaching the girls how to remain composed, how to make decisions under pressure, and how to trust in their own abilities. Despite the difficulties, there was also laughter and joy. Small moments of humor and kindness kept spirits high. Samuel told stories from his cowboy days, sharing adventures and lessons learned on the range. The girls, in turn, shared tales from their Apache heritage, stories of family, courage, and the land they loved. These exchanges built trust, understanding, and a bond that grew stronger with each passing day. By the time they neared the Apache territory, the girls were no longer simply rescued. They had become companions on a journey defined by courage, trust, and shared experience. Samuel had started the mission with a sense of duty and justice, but he now felt something deeper, a connection to these young women, a recognition of their strength, and a respect for their spirit. The journey that began as a noble act of rescue had become a story of human connection, mutual respect, and the power of compassion in the face of hardship. Samuel Hayes, the retired cowboy, had set out to do what was right. Along the way, he discovered the true value of courage, trust, and kindness. He learned that rescuing someone was more than freeing them from physical danger. It meant understanding their needs, respecting their strength, and supporting them in reclaiming their lives. And as the sun set on the horizon, painting the sky with brilliant shades of gold and crimson, Samuel knew that this journey was only the beginning of a story that would shape all their lives forever. The journey through the wilderness was far from easy. Samuel Hayes, the retired cowboy, led the Apache girls through a land both beautiful and unforgiving. The desert stretched endlessly, the sun beating down with relentless heat during the day and leaving the nights cold and sharp. They crossed rivers that cut deep canyons into the earth and hiked through forests where shadows danced mysteriously in the twilight. Every step required care, courage, and patience. Samuel knew the risks, but he also understood the rewards, the chance to restore freedom, safety, and hope to the young girls who had endured so much. At first, the girls were cautious. They had been betrayed, threatened, and treated unfairly for as long as they could remember. Their trust in strangers was fragile, and they kept a careful distance, observing Samuel's every action. Samuel, however, was patient. He knew that rushing trust was as dangerous as rushing into a river too strong to swim across. He spoke gently, explaining what they would face and how he would protect them. He showed them how to spot safe places to rest, how to read the signs of weather, and how to navigate the trails safely. Slowly, the girls began to sense his sincerity. Iana, the eldest of the girls, was particularly observant. She had a calm, steady way of looking at the world, noticing details others might miss. She would point out tracks in the sand, the direction of the wind, or the shadow of an animal in the distance. Samuel appreciated her sharp eyes and quiet intelligence. He realized that this journey was no longer just about him leading the girls. It had become a partnership. Each girl had her own skills, knowledge, and courage, and they were learning to rely on one another as much as on him. As the days passed, the girls began to open up. They told stories about their families, their tribe, and the traditions that shaped their lives. Samuel listened, fascinated. He had always respected the Apache people, but hearing their stories directly from the girls gave him a new understanding. He learned about the importance of community, the wisdom passed down from elders, and the deep connection they had with the land. These stories were full of courage, resourcefulness, and kindness, and Samuel found himself inspired by the strength the girls carried, even after all they had suffered. The journey was not without danger. One afternoon, as they crossed a narrow canyon, a sudden flash flood swept down the rocky slopes. Samuel acted quickly, guiding the girls to higher ground and securing their horses. The roar of the water was deafening, and the rushing currents carried debris that could have caused serious harm. Yet, Samuel's calm and decisive actions kept them safe. The girls were impressed by his bravery, but more importantly, they were beginning to feel a deep sense of trust and admiration for him. They realized he was not just a rescuer. He was a protector who would face danger alongside them. Even in moments of danger, there were moments of learning and laughter. Samuel taught the girls how to start a fire using dry wood and sparks from flint. He showed them how to catch fish in shallow streams and how to forage for edible plants. The girls, in turn, shared their knowledge of the land, how to recognize the tracks of animals, how to move quietly through the forest, and how to find water in unexpected places. Each day was a lesson, each challenge an opportunity to grow stronger together. The bond between Samuel and the girls deepened with every shared experience. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink, the group made camp near a small grove of trees. They sat around the fire, sharing a simple meal of bread, dried meat, and roasted vegetables. The warmth of the fire and the quiet of the evening created a sense of safety and comfort that had been missing for so long. Samuel listened as the girls spoke about their hopes and dreams. Yana spoke of her desire to help her tribe, to preserve their traditions, and to live a life of purpose and meaning. Samuel was moved by her determination and courage. He realized that this journey was about more than reaching their destination. It was about understanding, respect, and the growth of everyone involved. The nights in the wilderness were often cold, but they also provided time for reflection. Samuel would watch the stars, thinking about how far they had come and the challenges still ahead. The girls, too, would gaze at the sky, finding comfort in its vastness and beauty. They began to understand that the world was bigger than the hardships they had faced, that there was hope, and that there were people like Samuel who could make a real difference. The journey was shaping not only their path to safety, but also their understanding of trust, friendship, and the strength of the human spirit. As the group traveled further, they encountered other travelers, some friendly and some wary. Samuel taught the girls how to assess strangers, how to speak with caution, and how to protect themselves without causing unnecessary conflict. They met ranchers who shared food and advice, traders who guided them along safer routes, and other cowboys who respected Samuel's reputation. Each encounter provided lessons in human nature, teaching the girls about caution, kindness, and the importance of judgment in the wild frontier. During one particularly difficult stretch, they had to cross a wide, dry plain with no water in sight. The sun blazed overhead and the heat seemed unbearable. Samuel encouraged the girls to conserve energy, drink what little water they had, and move steadily without rushing. He taught them the importance of patience and perseverance, showing them that survival was not just about strength, but also about strategy, planning, and mental fortitude. The girls listened carefully, learning to trust not only his knowledge but also their own instincts. Throughout the journey, Samuel noticed small moments of bravery and kindness from the girls. One afternoon, a small snake appeared near their camp. While it could have been dangerous, one of the younger girls, Lilu, calmly guided it away without harming it. Samuel was impressed by her courage and thoughtfulness. These moments revealed the depth of character each girl possessed. They were not just victims of circumstance. They were capable, intelligent, and compassionate individuals. Samuel felt a growing admiration for them, realizing that he was not just guiding them but also learning from them. Over time, the bond between Samuel and the girls grew stronger. Trust had developed into mutual respect, and respect had begun to hint at something deeper. Samuel found himself thinking about the girls even when they were not near, wondering how they were feeling, if they were safe, and what they hoped for the future. The girls, in turn, began to see Samuel not just as a protector, but as someone who genuinely cared for them, someone who understood their fears, celebrated their strengths, and treated them as equals rather than helpless victims. By the time they approached the edges of Apache territory, the journey had transformed everyone. The girls were no longer frightened or uncertain. They were confident, resourceful, and ready to reunite with their families. Samuel, too, had changed. What had started as a mission of rescue had become a journey of discovery, connection, and profound respect. He had witnessed bravery, kindness, and resilience, and he had realized that the human spirit could endure and flourish even in the harshest conditions. As they neared the camp where the girls' families lived, Samuel felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. He knew the reunion would be emotional, filled with gratitude, tears, and perhaps even celebration. Yet he also sensed that this moment would mark a turning point, not just for the girls but for himself as well. The journey had created bonds that could not be broken, lessons that would last a lifetime, and feelings that were beginning to grow in ways Samuel had never expected. The Apache girls had been through so much, but they were strong, brave, and filled with hope. Samuel had started his mission to rescue them, to return them safely to their families, and to do what was right. But as he looked at them now, at their courage, their intelligence, and the spark of life that shone in their eyes, he realized that this journey had given him something he had not anticipated: a deep connection, a sense of purpose, and a new understanding of the power of trust, compassion, and human resilience. In the wilderness, under the endless sky and the watchful stars, Samuel Hayes and the Apache girls had traveled together not just through the land, but through fear, courage, learning, and understanding. Their journey was far from over, but the foundation had been laid. Trust had been earned, respect had been built, and quietly, bonds had formed that would influence the next chapter of their story, shaping the lives of all involved in ways that none of them could yet fully imagine. By the time Samuel Hayes and the Apache girls reached the outskirts of the Apache settlement, the bond between them had grown deep and unspoken. Days and nights of shared challenges, dangers, and small victories had transformed their relationship. What had begun as a mission of rescue was now a journey defined by mutual respect, understanding, and care. The girls were no longer timid or fearful. They had grown confident in their skills, their instincts, and in the steady presence of Samuel, who had proven himself not just a protector but a guide and a steadfast friend. As the camp came into view, Samuel felt a rush of emotions. Relief, pride, and anticipation mingled in his chest. He knew that the reunion with their families would be emotional and profound. For the girls, it was a homecoming they had feared might never happen. For Samuel, it was the culmination of a journey defined by courage, patience, and compassion. He dismounted his horse and helped the girls down, watching carefully as they stepped onto the familiar land of their ancestors. Their eyes widened with recognition, and a quiet joy began to take hold. The Apache elders noticed the group immediately. They had been anxious about the safety of the girls and had been watching for any sign of them returning. When they saw Samuel leading the girls, their initial surprise quickly turned to gratitude. They approached cautiously, speaking in low, respectful tones, assessing the situation. Samuel, understanding the importance of humility and respect in these moments, stepped forward with an open hand, explaining gently that he had brought the girls back safely and that his only goal had been to ensure their freedom. The elders listened carefully, their expressions softening as they understood the truth of his words. They had heard of Samuel Hayes before, a cowboy known for his fairness, courage, and integrity. Now, seeing him with the girls he had rescued, they were filled with a mixture of relief, respect, and gratitude. They welcomed him cautiously, inviting him to share food and water and to rest before recounting the full story of their journey. The girls, for their part, ran to their families, embracing parents, siblings, and elders with tears of joy and relief. Samuel watched quietly, allowing the reunion to unfold. He had expected gratitude, perhaps even some applause, but what he felt was something deeper, a profound sense of completion mixed with an unexpected feeling of attachment. He had come to care deeply for these young women. Their courage, intelligence, and kindness had left a lasting impression on him. And as he observed their interactions with their families, he realized that the journey they had shared had created bonds that went beyond duty. Over the following days, Samuel stayed in the camp, helping where he could and learning more about the traditions and daily life of the Apache people. He observed their customs, their respect for nature, and the ways in which they supported one another as a community. The girls were happy to be home, but they also continued to show Samuel the same trust and respect they had developed on the journey. It became clear that his role in their lives had grown beyond that of a rescuer. He had become a friend, a confidant, and someone whose presence was valued deeply. Gianna, in particular, stood out to Samuel. Her calm demeanor, sharp mind, and quiet courage had made a lasting impression. She was wise beyond her years, yet her strength was paired with a gentle kindness. She often approached Samuel to discuss practical matters, such as how to help the community or how to teach younger children skills they might need to survive. Samuel was impressed by her thoughtfulness and leadership, and he began to realize that his admiration for her was more than simple respect. It was the beginning of something more profound, a connection that touched his heart in ways he had never anticipated. The other girls also showed similar growth and strength. Lilu, the youngest, had become confident in her ability to navigate the world and was eager to contribute to her community. She often helped elders with daily tasks and taught younger children lessons she had learned during their journey. Another girl, Kaya, had a keen sense of strategy and observation. She shared her knowledge of the land and wildlife with others, helping to ensure the safety and well-being of her family. Samuel marveled at how capable they all had become, realizing that their strength had always been there. It had only needed the right circumstances to shine. As Samuel spent more time in the camp, he began to notice subtle changes in his own feelings. What had started as a mission driven purely by a sense of justice was evolving into something more personal. He found himself thinking about the girls not only in terms of their safety, but also in terms of their happiness, their futures, and their dreams. He admired their courage and kindness, and he felt a deep desire to continue being a part of their lives. This realization was both exciting and daunting. Samuel had always been a practical man, accustomed to facing challenges with a clear head. Now he was confronting emotions that were entirely new to him. The Apache elders recognized the bond that had developed between Samuel and the girls. They saw the respect, care, and trust that had grown during the journey, and understood that Samuel's presence had been beneficial not only to the girls, but to the community as a whole. After careful discussion and consideration, they offered Samuel their blessing to remain in the camp for as long as he wished. They appreciated his honesty, his courage, and the way he treated the girls with dignity. Samuel accepted with gratitude, knowing that this was a rare and precious opportunity to be part of something meaningful. Over time, the relationships between Samuel and the girls deepened. They worked together on daily tasks, shared stories and laughter, and supported one another through challenges. Samuel taught the girls practical skills he had learned on the range, such as caring for animals, managing crops, and navigating difficult terrain. In return, the girls shared their cultural knowledge, teaching Samuel about local plants, healing techniques, and the importance of community rituals. Each day brought new lessons, shared experiences, and growing admiration. The connection between Samuel and Ayana continued to grow in subtle but undeniable ways. They spent time together, discussing practical matters, sharing stories, and observing the land. Samuel found himself drawn to her wisdom, courage, and gentle spirit. Yana, in turn, respected his integrity, his calm demeanor, and the way he treated everyone with fairness. They began to understand one another on a deeper level, sharing thoughts, hopes, and dreams that went beyond simple conversation. It was a connection built on trust, mutual respect, and shared experience, a foundation far stronger than Samuel could have imagined at the start of his journey. As weeks turned into months, Samuel became an integral part of the community. He helped strengthen the camp's defenses, shared strategies for survival, and offered guidance in matters of dispute or planning. The girls thrived, growing even more confident and capable in their roles. Their families appreciated Samuel's presence, recognizing that he had not only rescued the girls, but had also become a positive influence on their lives. The community, which had initially been wary of outsiders, began to see him as a trusted friend and ally. During this time, Samuel also reflected on the complexities of his emotions. The admiration he felt for the girls was evolving into affection, particularly for Iana. He found himself thinking of her constantly, wondering how she was feeling, how she viewed him, and whether the bond they shared could become something deeper. Iana, too, was noticing the way she felt about Samuel. She admired his courage, his kindness, and the respect he showed to everyone in the camp. Over time, she realized that her feelings were more than simple gratitude. They were growing into love, though she approached these emotions with caution and thoughtfulness, mindful of her family and her responsibilities. The process of understanding and accepting these feelings was gradual. Samuel and Ayanna spent many hours together, walking through the fields, discussing the land, and sharing quiet moments. They learned to communicate not only through words but through actions, through shared tasks, mutual support, and the small gestures that build trust and intimacy. Their connection became a source of strength, grounding them both in the midst of a challenging and unpredictable world. Meanwhile, the other girls also played an essential role in the evolving dynamics. They were supportive, intelligent, and kind, forming bonds with Samuel that were based on mutual respect and shared experience. They celebrated victories together, comforted one another in moments of hardship, and learned from Samuel's wisdom and guidance. Each girl's unique qualities contributed to the harmony of the group, creating a strong sense of family and community that extended beyond traditional boundaries. The months in the Apache camp taught Samuel valuable lessons about patience, understanding, and the complexities of human relationships. He realized that true connection required empathy, respect, and the willingness to listen and learn. The girls, in turn, gained confidence, independence, and a deeper understanding of the world beyond their immediate community. Together, they had navigated challenges, built trust, and discovered the strength that comes from facing adversity with courage and cooperation. As the seasons changed and the land shifted from hot, dry summers to crisp, cool autumns, Samuel and the girls prepared for the next chapter of their lives. The journey that had begun as a simple mission of rescue had transformed into something far greater, a story of trust, friendship, mutual respect, and love. Samuel understood that the bonds formed during their journey and the time spent in the camp were not temporary. They were the foundation for a future built on shared experience, understanding, and care. By the end of this chapter of their story, Samuel Hayes and the Apache girls had not only survived the dangers of the wilderness, they had grown stronger, wiser, and closer than ever. They had learned to rely on one another, to appreciate the strengths and talents each person brought, and to embrace the complexities of human emotion and connection. What had started as a mission to rescue them had become a journey that reshaped all their lives, opening the door to new possibilities, challenges, and the promise of a shared future. After months of living among the Apache, Samuel Hayes had become an important part of the community. What had begun as a mission to rescue the young girls had grown into something far more profound. The bond between Samuel and the girls had deepened, built on trust, shared experiences, and mutual respect. They had faced danger together, learned from one another, and discovered strengths that had always been there but had been hidden beneath fear and hardship. Samuel, Ayanna, and the other girls had become a family in their own way, connected by love, loyalty, and shared purpose. The Apache elders, who had initially been cautious of Samuel, now regarded him as a trusted ally. They saw how he treated the girls with care and respect, and how he contributed to the well-being of the community. Samuel had helped with practical matters, offering guidance on managing livestock, teaching skills in the use of tools, and helping to navigate the rugged terrain surrounding the settlement. In return, the girls shared their knowledge of the land, the seasons, and survival techniques that had been passed down through generations. This exchange of knowledge strengthened the ties between Samuel and the community, building a sense of unity and cooperation. As time passed, Samuel realized that his connection to Iana and the other girls had grown into something deeper. He admired their courage, intelligence, and kindness, and he felt a strong desire to continue being part of their lives. Ayanna, too, had come to respect Samuel not just as a protector, but as a companion and friend. Their feelings for each other grew quietly, nurtured by shared moments of understanding, laughter, and support. Samuel often found himself thinking about her, wondering what she was feeling and how he could contribute to her happiness. The decision to marry Ayanna and the other girls was not made lightly. Samuel understood the importance of cultural sensitivity and sought the counsel of the elders. They discussed the proposal openly, considering the values, traditions, and practicalities involved. After careful consideration, the elders gave their blessing, recognizing the genuine love, respect, and commitment that Samuel had shown. The decision was a reflection of mutual understanding and a desire to build a family rooted in trust, care, and cooperation. Preparations for the marriages were made with care and respect. Samuel and the girls worked together with the community to organize ceremonies that honored Apache traditions while also acknowledging Samuel's role and background. The celebrations were marked by joy, laughter, and heartfelt rituals. The community came together, recognizing the significance of the unions and the positive impact Samuel had made on the lives of the girls and the settlement as a whole. The ceremonies were not merely symbolic. They were a reflection of love, respect, and the blending of different experiences and traditions into something new and meaningful. Life after the marriages was filled with both challenges and rewards. Samuel, Ayanna, and the other girls worked together to manage the homestead, tending to animals, cultivating crops, and ensuring that their home was safe and welcoming. Each person contributed in their own way, bringing skills, knowledge, and care to the daily tasks. Samuel taught practical skills he had learned as a cowboy, while the girls shared their wisdom of the land, traditions, and community life. Their home became a place of learning, growth, and mutual respect. Despite the hard work, there were moments of joy and contentment. The family would gather in the evenings to share stories, teach lessons, and reflect on the events of the day. Samuel would tell tales from his cowboy days, full of adventure and lessons learned on the range. The girls would share stories from their Apache heritage, full of courage, wisdom, and life lessons. These shared moments strengthened their bond, creating a sense of unity and love that anchored their lives in the midst of the unpredictable world of the Wild West. Over time, the family faced external challenges as well. The frontier was never truly safe, and there were occasional threats from wildlife, harsh weather, and occasional conflicts with outsiders. However, Samuel and the girls had developed resilience, courage, and resourcefulness that allowed them to navigate these dangers successfully. Their shared experiences had prepared them for adversity, teaching them patience, strategy, and the importance of working together. The home they built became not only a shelter, but a symbol of perseverance, cooperation, and the power of human connection. Samuel also learned important lessons from the girls. He observed their creativity, intelligence, and ability to adapt to changing circumstances. He admired their patience, their respect for nature, and the wisdom they showed in making decisions. In many ways, the girls taught Samuel as much as he had taught them. Their influence shaped his perspective, deepened his understanding of life, and strengthened his appreciation for the richness of human experience. The relationship between Samuel and Ayanna flourished over the years. They shared responsibilities, joys, and challenges as partners in life. Their love was rooted in mutual respect, shared experiences, and a deep understanding of one another. Ayanna's wisdom and calm presence balanced Samuel's determination and energy, creating a harmonious partnership. The other girls also played important roles in the family structure, contributing their skills, knowledge, and care to create a nurturing and resilient household. Education and cultural exchange became a natural part of life in their home. Samuel encouraged the girls to continue learning about the wider world, while they taught him about Apache traditions, language, and values. The home became a place of knowledge, where practical skills, cultural understanding, and personal growth were all valued equally. This exchange fostered respect, curiosity, and a sense of belonging, enriching the lives of everyone involved. The family's influence extended beyond their household. They became a model for cooperation, respect, and unity within the wider community. Neighbors and other settlers observed how Samuel and the girls worked together, managed challenges, and treated each other with fairness and care. Their home became a place of inspiration, demonstrating that trust, compassion, and shared effort could overcome obstacles and create a thriving environment even in the rugged and unpredictable frontier. As the years passed, Samuel and the girls celebrated milestones together, harvests, festivals, and the growth of their family. Each achievement was a testament to their resilience, teamwork, and commitment to one another. The love and respect they shared grew stronger, rooted in a foundation built during their journey through danger and hardship. Their story became a quiet legend within the community, a tale of courage, compassion, and the extraordinary bonds that can form in the most unlikely circumstances. In quiet moments, Samuel often reflected on how far they had come. He remembered the first day he had encountered the girls, the treacherous journey through the wilderness, and the moments of fear, courage, and trust that had shaped their lives. He marveled at how a simple act of rescue had grown into a lifetime of connection, partnership, and love. The journey had taught him that life was unpredictable, that true courage involved more than facing danger, and that meaningful relationships were built through patience, respect, and shared experiences. The girls, too, reflected on their journey. They remembered the fear and uncertainty of being captured, the challenges of the journey with Samuel, and the moment they returned to their families. They had grown in confidence, skill, and wisdom, learning to trust themselves and others. Their love and respect for Samuel had grown alongside their understanding of their own strengths and values. Together, they had created a family that embodied resilience, cooperation, and care. Samuel Hayes' story became more than just a tale of rescue. It became a story of how courage, compassion, and respect could transform lives. It was a story of unexpected love, partnership, and the creation of a family built on trust and shared experiences. The Wild West was often a harsh and unforgiving place, but Samuel and the girls showed that even in such a world, human connection, kindness, and courage could thrive. Their home became a symbol of what could be achieved through patience, understanding, and love. Samuel, Ayanna, and the other girls had faced fear, danger, and uncertainty, yet they had emerged stronger, wiser, and more connected than ever. Their story inspired others, demonstrating that even in difficult circumstances, courage, respect, and compassion could create extraordinary outcomes. Over time, the family expanded their knowledge of the land, developed their homestead, and ensured that the girls, culture, and traditions were honored and preserved. Samuel learned to integrate his skills with their knowledge, creating a life that balanced both worlds. The home became a place of learning, growth, and shared joy, where challenges were met together and successes were celebrated collectively. The Wild West was a place of adventure, danger, and opportunity, and Samuel Hayes had learned to navigate it with wisdom, courage, and compassion. By rescuing the Apache girls and embracing the journey that followed, he had discovered the profound power of trust, love, and human connection. Their story endured, not as a legend of conquest or wealth, but as a story of lives intertwined, hearts connected, and the extraordinary possibilities that can arise when courage meets compassion. Years passed, and Samuel, Ayanna, and the other girls continued to live and thrive together. Their story became one told around campfires, a tale of bravery, love, and family that inspired others. Samuel often thought back to the day he had decided to rescue the girls and marveled at how that single choice had transformed not only their lives but his own. The journey that began with danger and uncertainty had led to trust, love, and a family built on respect and shared experiences. In the end, Samuel Hayes' life was a testament to the idea that even in a harsh and unpredictable world, courage, kindness, and the willingness to do what is right can lead to the most unexpected and rewarding outcomes. His story, and the story of the Apache girls he rescued and married, remained a reminder that human connection, respect, and love are the forces that truly shape our lives, even in the wildest of frontiers.